Good afternoon, good evening, HubSpot, LinkedIn, Value First, whoever we're talking to
How
today.
long have you been live consecutively at this point?
Oh man, I think that's the first time I've ever screwed that up, honestly. Good afternoon and good evening, LinkedIn friends, Value First Nation. Welcome to another episode of Value First Data with Casey Hawkins and Klemen Robat. Happy Tuesday. How we doing? Covering
Doing
from
good.
our marathon unified customer view series.
It
Yes.
was not that long.
I feel like we've done longer series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you did talk about lead scoring. I'm still talking about lead scoring for the better part of a year. So that's a good point.
Yeah, we are over a year now into lead scoring content. So
Yep. Well, yeah, we learned a lot. And honestly, I think we'd be well within our rights and our willingness to create value for others if we talked about that every week for the rest of the year. But we've got other views to get to. And often this one we're about to talk about today, unified revenue view, is what people want to get to first. And often why systems like HubSpot don't have a say in the matter, because that's not the system of record and the dollars and cents are managed over here. But somehow we need the data that's over in the marketing and sales CRM system to forecast effectively, to understand what the journey at the front of the process needs to look like in order to depend on and forecast the journey for the rest of the process. So I'll ask this first of both of you. Have you ever seen a unified revenue view in the wild?
I've seen the wild versions of it. And
What does
then
it usually include?
just whatever it is, without thinking what it should be. This is, I think, a typical setup that I've been seeing. And then when you need forecasting or a board of director report or something, you need days, if not weeks, to prepare something. And then in between, it's just a discussion with whatever is there, and then explaining why what you see is not the whole picture, and why you cannot trust what you see.
I think what is a unified revenue view is maybe, Mike, to answer your question with a question.
You know what? Let's take a look, shall we? Before we jump into the playbook, we're going to follow the rules here. Before you start, watch the concepts presentation. We're going to click on that. This is like understanding commercial health of the organization. Like at the heart of it is what usually is not the remit of anybody on the marketing and sales side, CFO or CEO, like responsible for seeing that whole picture, includes forecasting, but also like delivery costs, like what's going out the door, can we deliver on time? And then there's like Klemen mentioned, this ongoing conversation about, okay, you think you're going to sell this much. Are you sure? Because if you're sure, we need to buy a whole bunch of stuff or add a bunch of staff or do something with our resources to be able to, fulfill that stuff. And so we're trying to make it so everyone making revenue decisions sees complete commercial reality, not optimistic pipeline, not historical accounting, but relationship-based truth. Again, to your point, Clement, usually we're explaining the relationship-based truth out loud on a case-by-case basis on the weekly or monthly meeting about why, yeah, that says 80%, but it's really probably like, 60% like to win. And really, if we're being honest, they haven't really said anything at all. And every time this happens, other times we don't win.
Mhm.
Like all of a sudden, everything gets called into question, and the views are happening like outside of the system, and rarely even documented outside of the most magnificent CFO spreadsheets that you've ever seen. When teams do have their act together. If that answers your question, Casey.
There's a thought that comes to my mind. I never understood the percentages on deal stages, and what's the purpose of it. Because of that, not you cannot say every deal in stage 3, whatever that stage is 30% ready to be closed. There's just no way, because it doesn't work like that. And to the other point, one of my first business coaches at my first company, he was always saying, even when the deal is closed won, it's still 80% to the revenue being realized. Even if you sign the agreement, there is still no guarantee until you don't see the money on the bank. You cannot say it's 100%. Term sheets were signed for companies to be bought, and then the day after something happened, and there was no cash, which means there was no acquisition. So until the money transaction is done, there is no 100% for revenue. But then arbitrary, whatever percentages are, is just tell me what numbers you need, and I'll make them so that you're happy. But yeah, I think things can be done better. So I'm excited to see where that conversation goes. I have not been involved in a lot of those conversations in a way that I would be leading those as a sales leader, but I've seen a lot of data around that.
Yeah. And it's tough, again, coming at it from the HubSpot perspective, but because of that inherent understanding that percentages and experiments are happening, and they've always been happening, and the way that RevOps, before it was called that, and like Mark Roberge, one of his claims to fame was cost per lead, right? And then building that towards like, okay, if we get 1,000 leads, it costs this much, it equals this many close won deals. There's your ROI, like calculation, right? And now there was a podcast episode last week where the one of the creators of the concept of an MQL, who started Marketo, the whole premise of the episode is how MQL is not a good idea anymore. Like, it's not real. And to understand how much has been built off of that single acronym into the process, right? It ends up, with stuff like this, right? Pipeline looks healthy, but deals keep slipping, can't figure out why. Forecasts change every week. We have no idea what revenue to actually expect. By the time we know a customer is unhappy, they've already decided not to renew. Finance wants one set of reports, sales wants different reports. Nobody agrees on what's real, at least like on the front side of the process. And since we can't agree there, that means accounting is what's real. Like the dollars and cents, it's like the only thing. right? So naturally, all of the opportunity, gets missed, and all of the discontinuity is handled verbally, right? Outside of the system. And I think what we're trying to show here, right? Like, you often buy like BI software or HubSpot or whatever reporting system. Like, the tools aren't going to fix this. So if you've said RevOps is going to fix this, and then you just tell RevOps to fix it somehow without them needing to collaborate with marketing or sales or finance, like, they can't do it. They either have to spend all their time talking to everybody, or they make up rules like, well, in order for the system to work, we can't skip stages, guys. Like, this is how the reporting system works. So any other, I guess, failed attempts that come to mind in trying to alleviate this part of the experience?
I think, yeah. I had just like 2 weeks ago, had a conversation. A sales leader who I work with on their HubSpot instance called me and she was like, "Hey, Casey, can you meet with me and our CFO? The QuickBooks integration isn't working. There's these 2 deals that are showing open in HubSpot, but we got paid for those already. And I'm not seeing sync errors, so I'm just like, I don't know what's going on." We meet with the CFO, and within 2 minutes, one of the deals hadn't been paid yet. I don't really even know what happened. I don't know if the customer told the salesperson, "Yeah, we paid that," but they hadn't sent the check, or check was in the mail, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then the other deal, they had made a partial payment. And I would not call myself a HubSpot QuickBooks integration expert, but I don't think I couldn't, in their instance at least, we were not able to show like the partial payment. So from HubSpot's perspective, it just looked open. But the CFO was like, "Well, we got like half the payment," or whatever it was. So it's interesting to talk about this, like having just gone through that, and think about even well-intentioned, even using that's QuickBooks HubSpot integration, like that's built to help us do this. And yet still we are almost causing more friction in many ways. Because if we don't have the full view, then there's distrust in this case, there was distrust in HubSpot from not enough context.
Yeah. And I think the framing that probably should be adjusted is that in general, accounting system integrations are not built to give us unified revenue views.
Mm-hmm.
They're built to help us reconcile.
Mm-hmm.
And be able to theoretically answer those questions of whether somebody has paid or not, because sales needs to know, because it's getting delivered, and if they haven't paid, like, they need to pay before they can open it up.
Mm-hmm.
And a way that's made sense to me and sometimes others is like, so often in manufacturing, you have an order management team that is very much like everything they do is like what customer success does in SaaS, in terms of they're helping the people get the value that they paid for. in whatever form that comes in. But when it's called order management, it's the mindset is we're going to do this process so that people will pay their invoice, right? Versus customer success, we're going to make them so successful that they, of course, they're going to pay the invoice. Like we shouldn't even be questioning that, right? And it's just a different like way of thinking about how these systems are supposed to come together. And when you're trying to put people in a position that are on the front lines to have all the visibility necessary to make that a great experience, that's much different than just making sure invoice from company A synced to invoice company A in the other system. So
I have probably more questions than to add. But one of the realizations a few years ago to me was close one deal does not equal cash flow, which is when the invoice gets paid. If you sell services, I think it's fine to put let's say the full service fee on a deal, and let's say the deal is worth 20K, but the payment is structured 10K in advance, 10K after completion, which means, as you said, Casey, you'll have half of it paid, and the other half doesn't. At the deal level, I think it's correct that the 20K deal was closed won, but doesn't mean the cash flow immediately follows that closed won deal. So cash flow and signed agreement and closed won are different concepts. So I think that those two systems have different purposes. QuickBooks and all the accounting is meant for you to track the payments, not necessarily the total projected revenue, which is what close one deals are telling you.
Right. And that's where this is part of the challenge, and why, like, I've talked to people on the Commerce Hub team, and they agree that this has really never been done before effectively, like in one system, unless you're doing these $1 million like SAP implementations where the entire company is working out of one system, which they're probably not. But without this master system that forces everybody to use it, like it's very rare. And I think there's a case to be made where it has like unified revenue view, where you can tie marketing behavior and audience behavior to real forecast understanding that you can trust and measure against and make decisions based on. Doesn't usually happen. And largely that's because the systems of record are on the accounting side, and they cannot have maybes in the system. They hate it. They hate maybes, right? So that's why these systems don't get integrated. Or when they do, it's like sales, we don't care about your process. It's got to be named this when it gets to this point. And even though it doesn't make sense, right? And that's where what we have now is an infrastructure in a platform like HubSpot that can house all of this data. They're also bringing in a lot of data that we've never had access to before on the signals side of things. And it doesn't have to replace all these finance systems. Like I don't want HubSpot to be the accounting tool. Like, please don't ask it to do that. But since we can bring it together, we can actually create like this picture. And so when we think about marketing wanting so badly to be responsible for a revenue number and moving it, and they don't have visibility to the operation side of the house, right? So literally Everyone in your organization who makes revenue-related decisions sees complete commercial reality, not sales optimistic pipeline, not finances historical accounting, not success teams engagement metrics in isolation, but the complete picture of revenue health. So sales sees customer health and usage patterns before expansion conversations. So usually this is on the customer success side of the house and not the CRM side of the house. Delivery team, they see deal commitments and expectations before starting implementation. This doesn't mean they're not talking to sales about a handoff, but there's data backing up. Like during the process, this happened. Finance sees deal progression and confidence before revenue recognition. Customer success sees original deal context and promises made. And leadership sees a relationship-based revenue forecast and not stage-based theater. Because everybody's asked to make decisions based on this. And what we get is a bunch of this at the end of the year where it's like, okay, somebody told us this is our revenue goal for 2026. If you look back at 2025, we sold 100 of these things. So if this is a revenue goal, we need to sell 200 of these things next year. So that's the forecast. That's the goal. Like we just got to hit it, right? With no deal pipeline to back it up, no understanding of what that's going to take. Like, so people come up with, marketing focused or sales focused tactics. Like, oh, let's just sell it. Let's just sell to this industry too. Or, hey, maybe we could make this new product because this other company like us sells it too. So we'll just make a new product. And then all of a sudden we'll start forecasting for that as if it's just like, the most egregious assumptions related to the most important measurement of the business.
You said a word that I don't see on this screen, so I'm curious. You've mentioned how marketing cares about this view. Is marketing, but marketing's not here. Marketing's not here. Is it because I know you look at sales and marketing often as one team, or do you think this needs to stop being marketing's weight?
I think it's very hard to ask marketing to make revenue related decisions. So if that's the bar we're setting, I think it makes sense to not require this for them. But this is built in a world where there's one customer team. But I want to talk to Claude about it now. Maybe update this.
I have thoughts around that. Where marketing and I see now there's visually there is leadership is across 2 blocks, so there is a place for marketing.
Yeah.
And it goes
it just got cut.
Why marketing should see that is I had a chat with one of the customers, a RevOps leader, who said, we start looking at data, questioning our assumptions around ICP and where we are, getting the most revenue, or where do we want to double down our activities for the next year. And when we start looking at the data, where we are getting the most MRR, the SaaS platform, they realize, no, it's not with the largest enterprises, which was the assumption, but there's a middle tier of companies, 500 to 5,000 employees, and that realization or thought process came directly from revenue numbers or close one deals and revenue on close one deals from within HubSpot. And then they started digging deeper and they realized, okay, this is the segment we should double down, because this is our sweet spot where we have the best conversions, where we have the most leads. And this is where I think revenue based or related decisions go back to marketing.
To advocate for marketing here for a moment. I think the reason that marketing cares about this is because marketing is constantly asked about ROI. And without the revenue piece, it's pretty much impossible to know the ROI. You're just guessing at ROI at that point. Or what a lot of teams do is they base ROI on the first purchase and then say, with an asterisk on the breast days, but we know we get a lot of repeat customers. So honestly, our ROI is even better than what we show, which is like a shrug.
Yep. I think it's a miss here.
Sorry to derail us.
No, I think it's fair. Hard to overcome all of the status quo understanding. I did ask Claude, I said, does marketing care about the unified revenue view? He says, yes, but maybe not in the way marketing teams initially expect. The unified revenue view is primarily a commercial clarity outcome pipeline through collection. So at first glance, it looks like a sales plus finance story, but marketing has a direct stake in it for a few reasons. The interest object, also known as the leads object in some portals, is where marketing's work lives inside the revenue view. The commercial flow starts with interest recognition, media engagement, community participation, assessment activity before anything ever reaches a deal. Marketing's job is generating and progressing those interest records. If marketing can't see what happens after interest progresses, they're flying blind on what's actually working. Attribution stops being a fight. When revenue is visible end-to-end in one system, marketing doesn't have to argue about influence. The relationship between content engagement, interest progression, deal, and revenue is traceable. And that's a structural win for marketing credibility. What marketing shouldn't be measuring shifts. The canonical marketing dashboard for the unified revenue view isn't email opens and form fills. It's which content drives progression. How does marketing touch points complement sales and support interactions? Which relationship segments engage meaningfully with which approaches, how well content supports where people actually are in their journey, and which customers are showing advocacy signals. So yeah, we'll have to get marketing on this slide for sure. Good call out. And I think we can skip. Let's see here. So as we go through the playbook, this is not something that happens overnight. And as we have come to understand in many, many clients over the past couple of months, the concept of a unified customer view also doesn't happen overnight, but it doesn't mean we can't document it and understand what we need to bring together into one view to create the foundation needed. So milestones here, can we just see it? Like, can we see all the data together? And this Klemen, I feel the need to share with you. You inspired an idea over the weekend that I shared on my first office hours earlier today. By the way, 11 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, 11 a.m. Central. Join us. You've been talking about the need to embrace unclean data or imperfect data or incomplete data to some extent. And while it's not good to expect all data to be clean or to actually get to complete, I anticipate most people don't want to embrace imperfect, especially when it comes to data. So, can we embrace intentional data instead? And I was reminded of it here because just getting the space created inside of HubSpot, right? So we have deals, we have quotes, we have orders, invoices, payments. Right? All those objects exist. They all have cards. They all have CRM cards out of the box. So you could create a middle tab and put those cards in there. And even if they don't have any data inside of them, you're being more intentional with what you want to see in the system. And you don't need to wait until that data exists to do that. Right. And what that does is it creates a decision matrix or decision making framework to say, okay, as we go and integrate Salesforce, is there any data in Salesforce that can help us fill in this view? And I bet if you find it, it wasn't going to be included in the initial integration. Is that fair, that phrase, intentional data? Do you think that's something we might be able to help people with?
I like to use phrase relevant.
Yep.
But intentional can work too. I mean, it's right now in my mind. It's semantics. Either works. The purpose of it is the same. What is important, what you should intentionally think about, or what is relevant for where the customer is in the journey, that data should be as complete as possible and as clean as possible. If it's not relevant, don't overcomplicate too much. And if there is data you want to get from the HubSpot user, if you show it that it's empty, it will be somewhere in someone's mind that, hey, maybe that property or that card is there for a reason. So we need to figure out how to bring the data in, or I need to fill it out because I'm the deal owner or company or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's interesting, and this is where the SaaS companies will get you, like, yeah, there's forecasting tools in HubSpot, there's goals. But if you try to set that up, like, especially this part, forecasts based on anything relevant. Like, before you have trust in the system, right? It's like, good luck. That's why everybody's exporting everything outside of the system. They're comparing it to their own data and their own conversations and then talking it out, because nobody wants to be accountable to this data either if nobody else trusts it. So trying to start here where you can make decisions based on the data before you even know you have everything accounted for, right? So revenue lifecycle from first opportunity through renewal visible in one place. Like, pretty hard to build into these other milestones. right? And even now, like revenue intelligence and that idea, like starting to apply AI, people are doing that without these two things done. And yeah, it's not going well for those people.
I wonder why.
Indeed. And again, HubSpot doesn't, and systems like it, they don't have to replace the other systems, but just know that there's space over here for this data. And like unified revenue view might be like for the CFO, might not be in HubSpot. And that's understandable. It might be over in their other system. You might have a hard time prying the spreadsheet out of their hands at the end of the day, because they've been using that spreadsheet forever. And they know how it works and they trust it, right? Now, this doesn't mean we can't have a unified revenue view for a sales team, for marketing, for teams working out of HubSpot, right? Because we have these objects in play to like native out of the box. We're not talking about custom objects here and require a bunch of configuration. We can put the data here so that we can put this picture together, right? Once we have it, things like health, right? Which largely, I would anticipate right now that a lot of health scoring in HubSpot is not necessarily based on revenue and is based on engagement and behavior and things that aren't dollars and cents. And that is one of the ways your best customers become also your most costly customers, since they are highly engaged. They look like they have a great health score, but everybody's attending to them, and now the margins are gone. So as we wrap up today, like, what are the top questions that come to mind, or really anything that comes to mind as we move into the playbook of this view and try to help people build it out?
I have two like foundational questions probably. One is, and maybe you don't have, like maybe this depends and that's fine, but like I like to think in practical terms and like do all of these views, unified revenue view, unified customer view, are they like tabs in HubSpot for the team that's in HubSpot? I know we already talked about like this might not be in HubSpot for the CFO, but for teams in HubSpot, is that practically how these get built?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my follow-up question, and this is again just like a foundational question, but like, do you have a strategy right now, or like what is the thought about like where the unified customer view ends and the unified revenue view begins?
It never ends and it never begins.
Because like I just think like the revenue is part of the customer view in some ways. So where's the distinction, or is there? I should have written Chris these questions.
No. Well, I don't like that at all. No, I think it relates to, I mean, in almost every case, when I feel like it's about to be hard to answer questions like that related to anything value first, it's coming back to like, what are we measuring really? What are we trying to understand? So for a unified customer view, we are trying to measure the health of the relationship with that other human. For a unified revenue view, we are trying to measure the health of the relationship through the lens of what the business also needs to make sure it's a healthy relationship, which is usually revenue, right? Because in my last in-house gig, like one of our top clients was like, responsible for 40% of the revenue, but it was probably the lowest margin client that we had, and everybody knew it, but you couldn't see in the system exactly where and why. You just felt it, like, oh, we're always answering the phone, we're always emailing, we're always bending it over backwards. They're 40% of the revenue, so yeah, we're not going to challenge, but we don't even have the visibility we need to even try and make it better, right? Like, where can we like improve the scenario? And that's why you can't really get to a unified revenue view without the unified customer view, at least from a trusted perspective. And so I think that's a great question. It's probably very nuanced, but off the top of my head, it's probably like maybe customer lifetime value or like recent orders is like what you would see on the unified customer view to round out that picture. And on the unified revenue view, it'd be like, margin analysis as well, or like total product, like expansion based on what's forecast. Like, I think there's a strategic element to every view that I'm starting to learn better ways of speaking to that. But that's probably the wild card in most situations. Like, if they pay us a lot of money, but it's in a market like we're not good at, and that market might be going away next year, like all that money might not be super healthy, like for the organization. It doesn't mean like the relationship is not great, but strategically it might not be a good idea to make decisions based on the health from a commercial perspective.
So there's some overlap, likely.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's the fun part for us in terms of like, can we just get to the point where we can see the overlap and then make decisions and help teams make decisions based on it, instead of assuming HubSpot's not going to be like the system of revenue, like view understanding, right? And this is why I focus on the data model part. Like, if you have the data model right, you can make all these views on one record, like in HubSpot, actually very easily. So, and it's very powerful when you can just grab a native out of the box card from HubSpot, like customer lifetime view. And because all the past orders are in the system already, and just all of a sudden, this thing that people usually don't have a good idea of is now all of a sudden visible, right? That was not some kind of integration or like, custom reporting setup, but all of a sudden we have probably 10 times the insight that we had before we like drag that card in. So hopefully this process will help people make decisions like that. Like, if you want to see customer lifetime value, let's see it. Let's put it in the view. And it's okay if it's on all 4 views too, right? Like, multiple people need that information, and we don't want to force them into other systems to get it. at the end of the day.
Mhm.
So, how about you, Klemen?
The thought you said that no, it's not only the net revenue, which is important to make revenue-based or revenue-related decisions. Is what's staying in my mind, which is often not the case on closed deals. You just see the value, but not the margin and all that. And then it might seem, as I said, 40% of revenue, but 80% of our costs are also related to that same customer. So do we want to keep it? Is it a distraction to the business for what we want to be as a business? So I'm looking forward to where that all brings us. There's a lot to think about.
There is, and we're going to help you break it down as we move forward. This was part 1. I think we can keep it to 6 parts. Again, I don't know. Spring Spotlight's going to be happening during this somewhere in the series, so that might shake things up. I know the Commerce Hub team has been working hard on helping with this very topic. So just like we planned it, folks.
As always.
Until next Tuesday, we'll be back with Unified Revenue View Part 2. Thanks so much, Casey and Klemen.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Right.